Ladies and gentlemen, let us delve into a curious and tender paradox of human nature. The question is not merely why do men leave the women who care about them, but rather what is it in us that pushes away what we say we want most? To begin, we must acknowledge a truth often avoided: human beings are restless creatures. We seek connection, yet we fear it. We crave intimacy, yet we are terrified of the vulnerability it demands. A man, like any human being, often finds himself at odds with the very thing that fulfills him. Imagine this: a woman opens her heart, offers her love, her understanding, her care. It's a gift freely given, yet sometimes the man feels burdened by its weight. Why? Because deep down he fears he is not worthy of it. There is a little voice whispering, what if she truly sees me? What if she discovers all the cracks in my armor? And so instead of facing that fear, he runs. But there's more to it than just fear. You see, men are often conditioned to value the chase over the catch. Society whispers to them, your worth is in your conquest, your strength, your independence. To be cared for deeply can feel, strangely, like a surrender. It confronts a man with the idea that he doesn't have to fight or prove his worth to deserve love. And that can be a frightening revelation. Here's the irony in pushing away love. The man isn't rejecting the woman, he's rejecting a part of himself. The part that longs to be vulnerable, to let down the walls, to be truly seen and accepted. He runs not from her, but from the mirror she holds up to his soul. And what of the women who care so deeply? They often wonder, was I too much? Did I love him in the wrong way? But the truth is, love is never wrong. It is the most natural thing in the world. What sometimes goes unnoticed is that love requires a dance, and both partners must be willing to move to its rhythm. If one partner resists, the dance falters, no matter how skilled or graceful the other may be. So what is the answer? It lies not in blaming men or women, but in understanding this dynamic. Love must begin with the self. A man who cannot face his own fears, his own insecurities, will struggle to accept the love of another. And a woman, no matter how deeply she cares, cannot fill the void that he must first learn to face. The beauty of it all is this: when we stop running, when we stop trying to fix, chase, or cling, love becomes effortless. It flows naturally. When we embrace our own humanity, flaws and all, we create the space for true connection. Fear of vulnerability runs deep in the human psyche, particularly in men, who are often raised in environments that encourage stoicism and self-reliance. From a young age, many boys are told to man up, be strong, or don't cry. These seemingly simple phrases create a lasting impression, shaping a belief that vulnerability is a weakness, something to be hidden, rather than embraced. This conditioning builds walls around the heart, walls that persist into adulthood and affect relationships in profound ways. When a woman shows genuine care and affection, it may seem to be exactly what a man desires. Yet, paradoxically, this very care can become a source of discomfort. It is not because he does not value or appreciate it, but because it challenges the defenses he has spent a lifetime constructing. To be cared for deeply is to be seen, truly seen, in all one's flaws, fears, and insecurities. For many men, this is an uncomfortable and even terrifying prospect. The thought that someone might look past the surface and discover their hidden vulnerabilities can feel like standing exposed in a spotlight. This fear often stems from a deep-seated belief that to reveal vulnerability is to risk rejection. A man may wonder, what if she sees the parts of me I've tried to hide? What if she decides I'm not enough? The irony, of course, is that love thrives on vulnerability, is the doorway to intimacy and connection. But for someone who has been taught to equate strength with emotional invincibility, opening that door can feel like stepping into the unknown, unarmed and unprepared. Another layer of complexity is that vulnerability requires trust, a kind of trust that many men struggle to offer, even to those they love. Trusting another person with their fears, insecurities, or pain means letting go of control. It means allowing someone else to have the power to hurt them. This is not a decision taken lightly, especially for someone who has been hurt or betrayed in the past. In such cases, the walls built around the heart are not just barriers, they are fortresses designed for survival. When a woman offers her care and love freely, she inadvertently touches these raw, unhealed places. Her affection may feel like sunlight shining into dark corners, and while this can be healing, it can also be deeply unsettling. He may not have the words to express this discomfort. Instead, he may retreat, pull away, or even leave. It is not a rejection of her, but a reflexive response to the discomfort of being exposed. The very thing she offers, love and understanding, can feel overwhelming to someone unaccustomed to receiving it. Vulnerability is often accompanied by the fear of dependency. A man may fear that accepting care will make him reliant on another person, which clashes with the deeply ingrained societal narrative of independence and self-sufficiency. To depend on someone else for emotional support feels like relinquishing control over one's life. This can create a push-pull dynamic. He may crave the connection and care she offers, but simultaneously resist it out of fear of losing himself in the process. It is also worth noting that vulnerability is not a skill that comes naturally to everyone. For those who have spent years avoiding it, the process of opening up can feel foreign and uncomfortable. There is no guidebook for how to navigate the complexities of being emotionally exposed. The fear of getting it wrong or being misunderstood adds yet another layer of resistance. This is especially true in a world where emotional expression in men is often met with mixed reactions, praised in theory, but sometimes judged or dismissed in practice. In many cases, the fear of vulnerability is not about the woman at all. It is about the man's relationship with himself. If he has not confronted his own insecurities or learned to embrace his imperfections, the idea of sharing them with another person can feel impossible. Her love acts as a mirror, reflecting back not only the beauty of connection, but also the unresolved pain and fear he carries. This reflection can be painful, and instead of facing it, he may choose the easier path of avoidance. The fear of vulnerability is a deeply human experience. It is not unique to men, but it often manifests more visibly in them due to the cultural and societal pressures they face. Breaking free from this fear requires a willingness to unlearn old patterns and embrace the discomfort of being seen. However, this journey is intensely personal and not something that can be forced or rushed. It is a process of learning to trust oneself and others, and it begins with the courage to face the very fears that make vulnerability so daunting. Cultural conditioning plays a profound role in shaping how men perceive love, relationships, and their place within them. From the earliest stages of life, boys are immersed in a narrative that celebrates independence, stoicism, and the relentless pursuit of goals. They are taught to value action over emotion, achievement over connection, and self-reliance over vulnerability. These messages, often subtle yet persistent, seep into the fabric of their identity, influencing how they relate to themselves and to others. This cultural framework not only shapes their behavior, but also sets the stage for the challenges they face in accepting care and love. In many societies, independence is equated with strength. To be dependent, even emotionally, is seen as a sign of weakness or failure. Boys grow up with heroes who embody these ideals: lone warriors, self-sufficient adventurers, and stoic leaders who succeed without needing anyone. These narratives are deeply ingrained, reinforced by media, family dynamics, and peer interactions. By the time a boy becomes a man, he often carries an implicit belief that his worth is tied to how well he can stand alone. This belief, while seemingly empowering, creates an internal conflict when he encounters someone who genuinely cares for him. To be cared for deeply challenges the very foundation of this conditioning. It suggests that he does not have to do everything on his own, that he can rely on someone else, and that his value is not solely defined by his independence. For a man steeped in the cultural ideal of self-sufficiency, this can feel unsettling. The act of receiving care might be interpreted as relinquishing control or admitting to a need he has been taught to suppress. This internal tug-of-war between wanting connection and fearing dependence can lead to confusion and withdrawal. There is also the notion of control that underpins the perception of independence. A man who has been conditioned to value autonomy may feel that allowing someone to care for him threatens his sense of control over his life. He might perceive love and care not as acts of kindness, but as obligations or expectations that he must fulfill. The fear of losing his independence, of being tied down, or becoming responsible for someone else's emotional well-being can create resistance, even if the relationship itself is healthy and supportive. Another aspect of cultural conditioning is the pressure to appear emotionally invulnerable. Men are often praised for their ability to keep it together or stay strong, while emotional expression is viewed with suspicion or ridicule. This conditioning leaves little room for men to explore their own emotions, let alone share them with someone else. When a woman shows genuine care and affection, it invites emotional intimacy, a space where vulnerability is not only welcome but required. For a man unaccustomed to this, the experience can feel like stepping into unfamiliar territory without a map. This cultural emphasis on independence also affects how men perceive the dynamics of power within relationships. Accepting care may be subconsciously interpreted as a shift in power, where the one being cared for is in a subordinate position. While this perception is far from the truth of what love and care represent, it is a deeply ingrained belief that can influence behavior. The idea of being taken care of might clash with the image of self-sufficiency he has worked hard to project, leading to a rejection of the care being offered. It's important to note that these cultural messages are not just external pressures, they become internalized over time. A man may not even realize that his resistance to care is rooted in societal expectations rather than his personal desires. This unconscious conditioning creates a barrier to connection, one that is difficult to dismantle without self-awareness and reflection. The struggle to reconcile the desire for love with the fear of losing independence becomes an internal battle, often played out in the dynamics of a relationship. Interestingly, this fear is not about the woman or her care specifically. It is about what her care represents, a challenge to the deeply held beliefs he has about himself and his role in the world. Her love becomes a mirror, reflecting back the possibility of a life that does not conform to the narrative he has always known. While this can be liberating, it can also be profoundly unsettling. The process of breaking free from cultural conditioning is not an easy one. It requires unlearning years of ingrained beliefs and confronting fears that have long been buried. The perception of independence as a defining characteristic of masculinity limits men's ability to fully engage in relationships. It creates a false dichotomy between being independent and being cared for, as if the two cannot coexist. This is one of the great tragedies of cultural conditioning. It denies men the opportunity to experience the full depth of human connection and love. To overcome this, a shift in perspective is needed, one that allows men to see vulnerability and dependence not as weaknesses, but as natural and essential parts of life. However, this shift is not something that can be imposed externally. It must come from within. It requires a willingness to question the narratives that have shaped their identity and to embrace a broader, more nuanced understanding of what it means to be strong, independent, and loved. Unresolved personal struggles lie at the heart of why some men may push away those who care about them. These struggles, often buried beneath layers of external composure, act as silent forces shaping their behaviors and relationships. They stem from past experiences, deeply ingrained insecurities, and the fear of confronting emotions that have long been ignored or suppressed. Such unresolved issues create barriers to intimacy, making it difficult for these men to fully embrace the care and affection offered to them. One of the most significant unresolved struggles is the pain carried from childhood experiences. Many men grow up in environments where emotional expression is discouraged, or where love is conditional. If a boy learns early on that his feelings are unwelcome, or that he must earn love through achievements, he may carry these lessons into adulthood. The result is a man who struggles to believe in unconditional love, viewing it instead as something suspicious or too good to be true. When a woman offers genuine care, it can trigger an internal conflict. On one hand, he craves the connection. On the other, he questions its authenticity or fears it will eventually be withdrawn. This skepticism is often compounded by experiences of rejection or betrayal in earlier relationships. Emotional wounds from past romantic failures or betrayals can leave lasting scars, making it hard to trust again. A man who has been hurt may build walls to protect himself, retreating at the first sign of emotional closeness. The closer someone gets to his heart, the more vulnerable he feels, and vulnerability is precisely what he has learned to avoid. Even if the care he is offered is genuine and healing, the lingering shadow of past pain may prevent him from fully accepting it. Another layer of unresolved struggle involves feelings of inadequacy. Many men grapple with the internalized belief that they are not enough, not successful enough, strong enough, or deserving enough of love. Society often amplifies these feelings by placing immense pressure on men to perform and provide, linking their self-worth to external achievements. When faced with a partner who genuinely cares, this sense of inadequacy can become overwhelming. He may question why she loves him or feel undeserving of her attention, interpreting her care as pity or charity rather than affection. This misinterpretation fuels a cycle of self-doubt that drives him further away from the relationship. For some, these struggles manifest as a fear of failure. To accept love is to risk losing it. And for a man who already doubts his ability to maintain a relationship, this risk can feel unbearable. The thought of being cared for creates a paradox. It offers comfort while also introducing the potential for heartbreak. Rather than confront this fear, he may choose to leave, believing that distancing himself will spare both parties future pain. This decision is not rooted in a lack of love, but in an inability to face his own insecurities. Unresolved struggles also often include unaddressed mental health challenges, such as anxiety or depression. Men are less likely than women to seek help for these issues, often due to societal stigmas surrounding mental health. As a result, they may carry the weight of these challenges alone, believing they must fix themselves before they can be worthy of someone else's care. The presence of a caring partner can feel both comforting and pressuring, as it brings to light the struggles they have worked so hard to hide. Instead of sharing these feelings, they may retreat, fearing judgment or rejection. These internal struggles are not always consciously recognized. Many men are unaware of the extent to which their past experiences and unresolved emotions influence their present relationships. They may not realize that their inability to accept care stems from an internal battle rather than an external issue with their partner. This lack of self-awareness makes it even harder to address the root of the problem, perpetuating a cycle of avoidance and disconnection. There is also the fear of losing identity within the relationship. A man wrestling with unresolved struggles may view accepting care as a loss of control over his own life. He may worry that relying on someone else will diminish his independence or lead to an unhealthy level of dependence. These fears are often tied to societal messages that equate masculinity with self-sufficiency, making it difficult for him to reconcile the idea of needing someone with his sense of self. Unresolved personal struggles are not insurmountable, but they require a willingness to face discomfort and vulnerability. For many men, this is a daunting prospect, as it means revisiting painful memories, confronting deeply held beliefs, and learning to see themselves in a new light. Without this internal work, the patterns created by these struggles continue to manifest in their relationships, pushing away even those who care for them most deeply. While these struggles may seem insurmountable, they are, in truth, an invitation to grow a painful yet necessary process that ultimately leads to deeper connections and a more fulfilling sense of self. However, until these struggles are addressed, they remain a powerful force, shaping how men interact with love and care, often to their own detriment.